The narrative against Skyward Sword is going to crumble in 2021 with the release of Skyward Sword HD. It's going to be a sight to behold, seeing people experience this game for the first time and realizing that the lies they've been told for a decade straight, that this is a bad game, that it's a poor Zelda game, that the controls don't work, that there's nothing good about this game, that that it doesn't have a good story, like that. Basically, people are going to realize that's complete crap, and this game is actually a top tier Zelda. Like not like one of the best ever, obviously. Like it's no, we're talking about a franchise that has like some of the best games ever made, right? Like legit, a lot of the best games ever made, and but it's still like a really strong contender among these games, right? Like this is a game that really helped innovate, like really helped pave the way for Breath of the Wild. It has top tier dungeon design, great combat. Like I love Skyward Sword to death, and I'm very excited about the people who will play this game again and give it a second chance. And the interesting thing I've been seeing from Twitter and message boards and stuff like that is like the people who deluded themselves into thinking the game was bad 10 years ago are desperately trying to keep the narrative going. And while a bunch of new fans, people who loved the game when it first came out, well, for one thing, people who loved the game when it came out and are recommending it to people, and new fans are really excited for the HD, are really excited for the re-release. And as a result of that, all of the complaints are getting drowned out. And when you really take into consideration that, like, all of the complaints regarding Skyward Sword basically amount to one, people not being able to figure out the controls, exactly like Star Fox Zero and Kid Icarus Uprising, and two, the meme of Fi being annoying. When you take into consideration that like Nintendo has clearly improved things since then, it's going to be, for example, the control scheme can be mapped to buttons right now. Like the motion controls will always be superior, obviously, but much like ARMS, right? It'll be the ARMS situation all over again. Like, you can't bitch about the motion controls in Skyward Sword if, like, there are buttons you can press to do things. Like, the buttons won't be as good, obviously, but people will actually... Giving people the option will allow people who use the motion controls to acknowledge that, like, yes, you can try both, and the motion controls are better. So it's like... It'll be the ARMS situation all over again, where everyone's serious about the game is just going to use the motion controls. When it comes to legitimately good games like Skyward Sword, like re-releases and ports are going to do a lot to really dispel this kind of anger and hate that's been spewed at it over the years. Like I don't see the narrative that Skyward Sword is the worst Zelda game continuing once this re-release comes out. I just don't. I don't see it happening. Like there's too many people already coming out and denouncing the detractors as being like a bunch of delusional fucks who are just hating on the game for being a Wii exclusive, a Nintendo game, which is really all it amounts to, right? It's typical. The Skyward Sword bitching has always been typical Pretendo nonsense, like bitching about like the evolution of the game, of the franchise, of the focus, of like the controls. Like it's no different in that regard. But this keeps happening over and over again. Like games that are shunned in like their infancy, like Luigi's Mansion, I believe Pikmin. Pokemon Snap, like they go on to become beloved classics that people want to see more of, right? Like people like want to see sequels to, and Skyward Sword, unfortunately, never got a sequel. I think it really deserves one, like more than any other Zelda game. I think I would want a sequel to Skyward Sword with like improved motion controlled sword fighting. It's like I desperately want that. Okay, more than any other Zelda game, I think Skyward Sword has like really fulfilled the initial promise of the Wii, right? Like with great sword fighting combat. Like I love Skyward Sword. I adore it. And I am super excited that people will get to experience this game in HD on Nintendo Switch at a full $60 retail price.